Hi everyone, and welcome to the In-School Confidential Counseling webinar. This specific webinar will target my hometown of Crystal Lake, Illinois. However, the message behind it could apply to any community. So, a little bit about your presenter. My name is Courtney Wallner, so if you have any questions after watching, feel free to contact me by my cell phone at 815-529-4773 or my email, courtney1624@sbcglobal.net. I am currently a freshman pre-vet major at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. However, I grew up in the big town of Crystal Lake, Illinois. I attended Hannah Beardsley Middle School for 3 years, then graduated to Prairie Ridge High School, where I achieved my high school diploma. Though you may be thinking, why is this relevant? Well, it's to show you that I have real ties to this community and its schools. However, the reason behind this project is about what those schools lack and how we can make them better. I live currently with paranoia mood disorder and major depressive disorder. These disorders came about starting in around 6th grade, and like most children would, I went straight to my parents for help. Unfortunately, I came from a home that feared and misunderstood mental illness, meaning I was unable to receive professional help and wasn't allowed to talk about my issues. When I turned to the school counselors for help, I thought that I had finally found my beacon of hope. However, after my first session, I was notified that everything I had said would be reported straight back to my parents. Knowing their feelings on mental illness, I knew there would be consequences for seeing the counselor, and sure enough, there was. This prevented me from ever seeing the school counselor again, and unfortunately, the policy in high school was the same as well, which led to me suffering for 7 years before finally being able to get help. Had I been given a confidential resource sooner, there would be a lot less damage that I must fix now. So, mental illness. To those of you who had never been exposed to it, my story may sound like a simple anecdote. However, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, more than 20% of mental illness begins before the age of 14. In addition to this, NAMI, or the National Alliance on Mental Illness, reports that 1 out of every 5 teens have a diagnosable mental illness. So in my high school of 1,200, that's 240 individuals, or 20% of the student population. The study goes on to say that only half of these teens will ever receive the help that they need. Epidemiologist Dr. Diane Ackerd from the University of Cincinnati found that one of the largest reasons why teens do not reach out for help when they are struggling is because they fear that their doctors, or in this case their school counselors, will not keep their information confidential. In fact, 45% of teens stated they would not seek mental help if notifying their parents was a requirement. Therefore, giving teens access to quality and confidential mental health services is an ever-pressing need in our community. Our community students represent the next generation of citizens in our humble city. Receiving a grant to kickstart a confidential counseling service in our schools would produce happier, healthier citizens. After all, the recovery rate for depression and anxiety with professional care is 80%, which is a substantial amount. So, what exactly am I asking for? Well, with a grant of $7,600 to the Crystal Lake School Districts, we would be able to create awareness of counseling programs and create actual counseling spaces within each of the 7 schools. The relevance of this grant is, as mentioned earlier, to produce happier students who would grow into happier and healthier members of our community. Not to mention that happier students tend to perform better on standardized testing, which could even mean a potential increase in governmental funding in the following years. Better students lead to better schools, which leads to smarter communities overall. There are 3 main steps we must take in order to achieve our goals. Number 1 is communicate and inform. Such a program as the one I'm suggesting would require informing parents and the students alike. This would be done through posts on the school websites, receiving notice in the mail, and advertising within the schools. The second step is explain and question. This would entail holding a meeting with each of the hired counselors, faculty, and parents to inform and clarify any questions they might have. There would be a meeting at each respective school to avoid overcrowding. One problem I would like to address really fast is the issue of what would be considered confidential or not. Most parents would like to know what their kids are up to, and rightfully so. Kids, on the other hand, want their parents to stay out of their business, and rightfully so. So what determines when the line should be crossed? It is state law in Illinois for parents only to be informed when a teen receives a positive HIV/AIDS test, when a teen checks themselves into an inpatient facility, and if the counselor strongly believes that the teen's life or another life is in danger. Because the school would be hiring counselors and not psychiatrists, there would be no prescribing of medicine, and thus the schools would not have to deal with pharmaceutical confidentiality. Everything else said to the counselors, however, will remain confidential. Finally, the last step to achieve is implement and design. This would include renovating a room within the school to hold these counseling sessions. These are the 7 schools within our community. We have Hannah Beardsley Middle School, Richard Bernotis Middle School, Lundahl Middle School, and Prairie Grove Middle School. Each of these graduate into 3 high schools, which would be Prairie Ridge High School, where I attended, Crystal Lake Central High School, and Crystal Lake South High School. Here is an idea of what the safe spaces within each school would look like. They would provide dimmer lighting, comfortable seating, and a closed, safe space. So now let's take a look at our budget. As you can see, there's only 3 items on the list: publicity, informational meeting, and renovation. Publicity simply entails sending mail to the homes of students and posting flyers around the school. Word of mouth would significantly advertise the service, so there is no need to publicize more. As for the informational meeting, each school would be responsible for hosting their own. There would have to be enough seating to hold roughly 2 parents per student, which may cost money to rent depending on the size of the school and where they choose to hold their meeting. Lastly would be the renovation budget. Counseling spaces need to feel safe and comfortable in order to be effective resources. Therefore, I'm proposing a $1,000 design budget for each school. Seeing as the heat, AC, and flooring would already come with the room, the money would be used to purchase soft furniture, dimming lights, a white noise machine, and an exterior sign for each room. All of this would total to only $7,600. To clarify, the actual counselors themselves would be supplied by McHenry County's Pioneer Center, a mental health facility that employs many adolescent counselors. The grant would not cover their salary or benefits because those are already covered by an external source. By granting this proposal and supplying assistance to teens with a safe place to talk, we would be effectively lowering the amount of childhood mental illness within our city and hereby increasing the community's overall health and happiness. These teens are the next generation that Crystal Lake houses. The happier they are, the happier their children will be, and the happier all successive generations will be. And as we know, a happy community is a healthy one. Thank you for your time and for tuning into this webinar. If interested, I have supplied the sources for my statistics used in this presentation. Thank you for listening.